Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Well, this is going to be very interesting. This is, first of all, there's many people I haven't seen for a while, and some new people. So, and this on the chapter that we're looking at is quite different from others. And the surah of the Quran that we're looking at is quite special as well, Yasin. And ever since, years and years ago, when I began to hear about the Quran and about Islam and all of that, I kept hearing that Yasin is very special. And we'll want to hear later on about people's experience with Yasin. But this is a very, very special, miraculous surah that we'll be looking at today. And so things are going to be quite different, I think. So let's jump right in. If Aisha can lead us with the Fatiha.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Okay, thank you. And remember that you can always go to gallery view and extend your boxes so we can see more beautiful faces. So go ahead and try that. Now, so we're looking at the Surah Yasin and where this comes from. And I'll go ahead and read this first beginning part. So Ibn Arabi tells us that from this alighting place, that is the Surah Yasin, emerges manifest the entirety of the divine alighting places. So it's the place from which all of the alighting places emerge. All of them in the world which is everything other than God, the high and the low, spirit and body, meaning and senses, visible and invisible. From this alighting place emerged the 10 statements. And we'll look at this later on, but these are not just the 10 statements that are usually understood. Ibn Arabi has a very special understanding of these. And the prophetic report comes about relief, so a breathing relief, just as we said above, which is actually for us the next slide. This alighting place has faces, so it faces and has facets towards each genus and species and individual in the world. Faces which do not belong to another genus or another species or another individual. And so from my right-hand side, from there will be coming, I hope, inshallah, a breath from Ar-Rahman. And we'll ask our dervish brother Salah, who is in Yemen, who is at the right hand, if Salah could recite a few verses of Yasin. And what we'll do is we won't put a translation up or have a translation. So this is for us to maybe concentrate more on absorbing the sound and seeing what meaning comes across through the sound. So with Salah from Yemen, if he could recite a few verses for us.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون صدق الله العظيم.
Okay, thank you. And here is the poem that Ibn Arabi commences the chapter with. Klaus, if you could read that for us, please.
If it is asked where there is in being or there is, which is more spacious than the merciful kindness of God, say, there is a heart, if there is, a house of the divine, for a faithful one, established there in him, together with conscientious avoidance of the impure, and fear of God when he is so adorned. Surrounded on all sides by the true, with knowledge and being known, he's the entity of his image, and he's the rare one in whose entity he's light and easy. The heart is my possession, and my heart is living rent-free because of his creator. He's land flourishing and well preserved, and he's faith and sincerity.
Yes, thank you. So this is the story of the heart. So the heart is all the pronouns here of the he. And that's the sukna, is that rent-free. And I can't get a more or less idiomatic word, but it means that the heart is a guest of the divine creator, and the heart is able to live without having to pay any rent. So how we can express this in not so idiomatic English, let me know. So this surah, when Ibn Arabi is talking about her, he's talking about an alighting place of two of the mysteries of the heart, of the collecting and the being. So this is this kind of mysterious term that Ibn Arabi uses throughout the Futuhat, the collecting and the being, al-jama' wal-wujud. And so we'll begin to look at some of the imagery of who this is and who they are. And so, as with Ibn Arabi, these are very rich images, and he tells us he shows us one image, and then he shows us another, and then he shows us yet another. And so this is the beauty of reading the Futuhat, that he is illustrating all of this for us. So there are people who are people of collecting and being, and then there is the Fatiha, which is the collection and the being. And so earlier in volume 1, chapter 5, I'll just summarize this. And as I was reading over this, I realized that in 3 pages, he's telling us just a little bit of what happens with this particular place of the collecting and the being. And no wonder it's everything is so very complicated. But to put it all into 1 or 2 words, when we're talking about the Basmala up there, and that's the Basmala, which is a scan from that manuscript from Aceh, from Indonesia. The B, so the B of the Basmala, which accompanies existent things, is from the presence of the true in a station of the collecting and the being. So the Ba, that B, is in a station of collecting and being. So we've heard that the entire book is contained inside the Fatiha. The entire Fatiha is contained inside the Basmala, and the Basmala is contained inside the Ba, and then Shibli or Bayazid Bistami or we are the dot under the Basmala, the B. So you are the B of Bismillah. You are the B. You are surd, unmoved, unvocalized, and unbreathed. And so surd is very interesting because it's, I think, an archaic term for consonants that don't have vowels, are not vocalized. And things which are surd are irrational. They don't have a ratio. And so they're irrational and absurd. And so the consonants are absurd, and they are irrational, and they are waiting to be breathed into. So they are mute until they breathe into. So surd is an archaic term for mute and for consonants. So we are these absurd, irrational beings until we are breathed into, and then we become vocalized. And in Arabic, vocalization and movement is the same word. So when we are moved and when we are breathed into, so the vowels that are breathed into us make us move, which make us alive, which make our beings meaningful. And then the breath here is the nafas, the breath of Ar-Rahman, which comes from the right, which comes from Yemen. And then, so the B of the Bismillah is us. We are unmoved, unvocalized. And then the breath of Ar-Rahman breathes the vowel Ah into us. And then the next letter S, the S is the mirror linking the one who comes before you and the you who comes next. So S is this linkage, and it's the sibilant sound is the sibilant coming from behind, and the sibilant is flowing us and linking us to the next part. And the next part is the M, which is the king's cosmic possessions. So the flow is we are surd, unmoved, we are breathed into with an Ah, then we come to the S, which is the mirror linking the one to what's coming next. And then what's coming next is M, the king's cosmic possessions. So this is why Ibn Arabi says the Bismi is Adam Eve. And there are many other ways and images to look at this. And here's another image that we'll begin to look at. So this collecting and the being is the Fatiha, the mother of the book. So the Fatiha is the opener and also the mother of the book. And then of this book, Aisha said, his character is the Quran. So Aisha reports his character is the Quran. So he is the book, his character is the book, and then the collection and the being is the mother of the book, and which is the Fatiha. And so we have, in a sense, three places that we move, or three images to look at. We can see the mist over here, and the mist is his spirit. So this is his sallallahu alaihi wasallam spirit. And then we see trees, and we'll find out that trees, as we looked at last week, that shajar, tashajara, means contention, means opposites, contradictions. And then his mother is the place where everything is written. And so this paper is something I scanned from a letter my father got from his father. So it's about 100 years old, this paper. And so this paper, and we do this in English also, we have these metaphors and images in English. You can say that that's the book, I read you like a book. Or you can say, this is the canvas of my life, or the canvas upon which I am creating my life. So we have these in English as well. So in Arabic, they're very, of course, very full imageries. So the mother then is the platform or the scape, the landscape. It's Mother Earth. It's the tablet which is written upon. And so we look at the process then of the spirit, so the articulate soul, and then the tree, which is this place where things become two and things become polar. So polarity enters in. And then we come to the mother, the page upon which the ink and the pen are writing. And so we can look at the pen, the ink, the page, and we can see his spirit, the tree, and then his mother. So his character is the Quran, and the collecting and the being is the mother of the book. So we'll just be holding this as we go. So this is how the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim contains all of these images, and we can draw them out and paint them in many, many different ways. So now with this page, which is the Mother Earth, I have to make sure that, okay, here we go. So the page, which is Mother Earth, and the tablet upon which the pen writes is the canvas then. And this canvas is a body which has mineral, plant, animal, and human being. And so the mineral parts of our body, plant parts for Ibn Arabi, plant means that those things that grow. So the parts of our body that grow. And then the animal part is the parts that move with intention. So I want to move, and that's an animal part. And the human part is the articulation of the soul. So this mystic body, which is the body, is mineral, plant, animal, and human. And all of it is always praising the creator, except the only thing that's not always praising the creator are humans and jinn. But the body of the human being is always praising. Omar, if you could recite that verse for us from Isra 1744.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تسبح له السماوات السبع والأرض ومن فيهن وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم إنه كان حليما غفورا صدق الله العظيم. Everything glorifies who? The seven skies and the earth and whoever is in them. And there is nothing but it celebrates him with his praise. But you do not understand their celebration. Indeed, who is forbearing, all forgiving.
Okay, thank you. So this cosmic body, this Mother Earth body, the body that we are, the mystic body, all of it is praising. There are mineral parts, plant parts, animal parts, and so on. And last week we looked at, Ibn Arabi was asking us, this is the body of his, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is his body. This is this mystic body. And what part are you? And what faculty are you? Of all the faculties, which of the faculties are you? So he's looking at how each of us are potentially, if we're aware of it or not, and potentially or actually, we are parts of this body which are doing things. And so when you see a mystic body functioning, you see the minerals working and the plants working and everything is working. And then to extend this metaphor into other places, when you see something that's not working that way, you can think about carpal tunnel syndrome, because suddenly when you have one part of the body doing all the work repetitively, not only is it boring, it's also painful. So therefore, we want to be not in a carpal syndrome situation, but in a situation where the entire body is working in together and working and doing its part. So the minerals part, the plant parts, and all the faculty parts. So this is how, in a sense, this body then, we begin to see that the body is not just my individual body, but my body is linked as ripples in a sheet to every other body. And that when I look at it in a certain way, I realize that this mystic body is the body of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the ripple imagery is that we go back to that landscape, the page, when it ripples or when it has fibers, we can think of those fibers as individuals, and that's fine because there's an individual fiber sticking up and say, hey, that's me. Or there's a ripple or a crease. And all of those are individuated. But also when we see it, that is one landscape. And so that one landscape is this one body, and the grains and the fibers and the creases and the ripples are the individuals that we see as well. And so, all right, and let's sing this Ilahi.
The full moon of truth is rising, souls of love will never part. You have honored the true Medina of the tender human heart. Welcome, 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 Ya Rasulallah. Welcome, 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 Ya Habiballah, the timeless soul of Rasulallah enters into the realm of time beneath his green robe of boundless light. Only perfect essence shines. Merhaba, O rose of prophecy. Merhaba, O merhaba. Merhaba, nightingale of ecstasy. Merhaba, oh merhaba.
His right finger of perfect unity splits the moon of duality. From his breast all moonless nights shines a light that all can see. Welcome, 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 Ya Nabi Allah. Welcome, 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 Ahmed and Mustafa. His long hair falls upon his shoulders. Its fragrance is pure as musk. Lines of prayer are filled with sweet perfume when the desert breeze blows at dusk. Merhaba, living Surah. Merhaba, oh merhaba, merhaba, Yasin of Allah. Merhaba, oh merhaba.
Beautiful, thank you. So in this next slide, be watching for the timeless soul of Rasulullah enters into the realm of time. And then maybe in the slide after that, beneath his green robe of boundless light, so I think we'll be seeing light, only perfect essence shines. So that's the who. So be watching for that in the next two slides. And then, of course, Yasin of Allah. So this is a beautiful way to say the Yasin of Allah. So think about how that works. And then the living Surah Taha, so the living Quran. So Aisha told us that his character is the Quran. Okay, all right, two more slides from now. So, this Ibn Arabi told us that this alighting place is the alighting place of breathing relief. And so we don't really have the word in English, but in Arabic, breathing and relief are the same word. So I'm using breathing relief. So Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, "Indeed, I am finding a breath of Ar-Rahman coming to me from the right-hand side from Yemen." And then Ibn Arabi says, and God breathed relief, transitioning through him by means of the Ansar. The Ansar were the people who welcomed the Prophet ﷺ and his community into Medina. And they came from Yemen. So they're seen as they came from the side of the right hand. They're from Yemen. They're the breathing relief of the Prophet ﷺ. The Ansar were words of God. Through them, God aided to victory his religion and made him overpower his enemy. So Nasr is aiding and assistance, and Ansar, the ones from Yemen, who were a breath of Ar-Rahman. This alighting place, Yasin, is the one of this breath relief based on Ar-Rahman. So Ibn Arabi, will say these things and hope that we understand the imagery. He's saying the Ansar were words of God. And then elsewhere, I've had to bring this up to give, he talks about this all the time. The sites who are the created beings, that is you and me, the sites who are the created beings are words of God which are never exhausted. So no matter how many, there's no lack of pens and ink and paper to write all of these words of God, who we are. And once we are written, we never disappear. So, and the word does not change with Allah. About the being of Jesus, alayhi salam, he said he was his word cast to Mary, and he is Jesus, alayhi salam. This is why we said the sights who are the created being are words of God. And we're keeping this background, and this is about breathing in relief. Just as Ar-Rahman breathed in relief, transitioning through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by means of the Ansar. So he said, indeed, a breath of Ar-Rahman comes to me from the right-hand side. So the Ansar were brought forth from that breath of Ar-Rahman. So Ar-Rahman breathed into and created these people called the Ansar, who would give Nasr, victory and assistance, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they are words of the true. It is just as God breathed relief, transitioning through Jonah by means of the exit from the belly of the whale. Omar, if you could read the verse and translation, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وذا النون إذا ذهب مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين صدق الله العظيم. And this is and mentioned the noon when he went off in anger and deemed that we had no power over him. But he cried out in the darkness, saying, there is no God but you. Be you glorified. I have been a wrongdoer.
Thank you. And so now this is an illustration that Ibn Arabi uses a little bit later, and it's very much helpful for us right now. And when I was preparing this slide, I got to this page and I said, well, I'll put the illustration on this page. And so I was about to, delete the column and all of that. And then I said, wait a second. Last week's this page was exactly what we're talking about right now. And remember last week, if you remember, and learn that you, the human being, you are a mithal of the divine image. So you are a projection screen of the divine image. And so let's read and then go to the illustration. So remember we said when the timeless soul of Rasulullah enters into the realm of time. So this is imagery of when God bursts forth into being, he protrudes with tending directly. So tending directly here is sirat mustaqim, which is at the second verse or the third verse of Yasin. He protrudes with tending directly, sirat mustaqim. And he provides being, that is, provides all of us, rahmah, the kind mercy, feminine. By her, he opens the latches of the matters, high and low. So these latches are opened by kind mercy. And if you think about opening a latch, opening a locked door, and then bursting forth becomes being and kind mercy. So this is also the way we are the bees, the letter B of the Basmala. We are surd and unmoved and unvocalized. We're locked up. And when the breath flies us open and cracks open our locks and opens our latches by mercy, by kind goodness, then all of these divine effusions can begin. He extends the hand of assistance. So this extending of the hand is medet to the projection screens, that's us, by means of his that, by means of his who. He extends the hand of assistance to other than the projection screens by means of his leaning inclination. So this leaning inclination is also bending in affection. So by means of his leaning one way, the organic bodies appear. So that's the left part in the illustration. And by means of his leaning the other way, the spirits appear. The bodies and the spirits are like the right hand and the left hand, because the bodies lack the spirit just as the left hand lacks the right. So this means that the bodies don't have a spirit and the left hand doesn't have the right hand. The universal both hands is the projected screen. So the projected screen is both hands, body and spirit, left and right hand. Its likeness, its illustration is here in the margin. So in this one, we have this half arc, this half circle, Allah. And then just a little bit above it, there's a bold straight line that Ibn Arabi draws. And look at what this means. This is one line. So this projection screen that we are the mithal, we are projection screens. There is this complete human being, and his projection screen is the projection screens, one unbroken line. So there is no little bit of line over here, which I could say, hey, that's me. And there's no little line over there, say, hey, that's someone else. There's one bold line of the complete human being, and that is his projection screen. And so if I am a projection screen and if you are a projection screen, then we are somehow on that line or in that line. And so our organic bodies are here, our spirits are here. The projection screen that we are holds both hands. So this has, let that sink in and hold with that, keep with that. So here's our projection screen that we see. And he created angels from the deeds of the children of Adam and Eve, outward and inward ones. So when we do outward deeds, an angel is created. When we do inside deeds, another angel is created. And these angels are created from these deeds. And they all end up at the furthermost Christ thorn jujube lote tree, the Sidra al-Muntaha. And the trees planted in the garden, and so all these other trees planted in the garden, are from the deeds of her family, of the children of Adam and Eve. So we're looking at we're looking at people who are words of God. We're looking at a person in Jesus alayhi salam who is a word of God. We're looking at us who are words of God, doing what words do and having meaning that goes beyond us. And we're seeing that our actions are creating angels. And so all of us are these words which are doing and creating and populating the trees of the garden and populating all of them, the entire realm of words and actions are all ending up at the furthermost lote tree. And so when we'll ask Aisha to read this, the verse, and when we read that, do have a look at this lantern here with the mirror. And I never realized that, boy, that really works. So when there was a day with no electricity, or night, and I had the candle, when you put the candle next to the mirror, oh, people know this for thousands of years, but I just figured it out. Oh, wow, there's so much more light. So of course, I'm kind of slow on that one, but there was. So we look at this light, the wick, that's the light in the wick, and we see its reflection in the mirror. And so think about this. Ibn Arabi, remember, he told us in very strong terms. He says, so when you want to see haqq, when you want to see the truth, he said, don't look in your own mirror, look in the mirror of your prophet. He's saying, go look in that mirror right there behind the lantern. Look at that mirror and see the light that way. Okay, so Aisha.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu nur samawati wal ard. Mathalu nurihi kamishkatin fiha misbah. مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نور على نور يهدي يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم. صدق الله العظيم.
Beautiful, thank you. So a translation is God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The likeness of his light is as a niche wherein is a lamp, the lamp in a glass, the glass as it were a glittering star, kindled from a blessed tree, an olive that is neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil well nigh would shine, even if no fire touched it, light upon light. God guides to his light whom he will, and God strikes similitudes for people, and God has knowledge of everything. So that was beautifully recited. And you can see that's a very difficult recitation. It's difficult in the translation as well. So here, let's look at these imageries that are coming out. So this is this lamp, this lantern. And we're talking about Yasin. This alighting place has the ruling determination in the world, all of him like an alcove, like a container, in which, or a niche, like a niche that's built into the wall, in which is a wick, the wick enclosed in a glass lit by a tree of his who. So the tree is neither east nor west, accepting no directions. So it has no direction. So that means that it's in a higher dimensionality. It doesn't have left, right, nor south, and so on. From this olive tree, there is expressed olive oil. So you get oil out of this tree. And it is the extension, the madda or medet. So when we cry out medet, the extension for the manifestation of this light. So the call for medet, the cry medet, is the extension of the manifestation of this light, which comes from the wick, which is lit by the olive oil, which comes from the tree, and it is in a alcove. So hold that all together. So these are four. So now he's helping us with this. You'll go back, and these are four. These are four: the alcove, the glass, the wick, and the expressed olive oil. The fifth is the hu, the huiyat. And she, so this is capital S now, this is Zat, Hu, Huiyat. And she is the olive tree, transcendent beyond directions. The metonym for her is the tree. So the way to describe her is to describe the tree. So the metonym for her is the tree, derived from sajajar, to be, so this is the word shajar, tree. It's derived from the word for embroiled, contentious, intricately involved. This is the contrariness, given what this who carries, of these mutually contradicting divine names, like the exalter and the abaser, and the harmer and the benefactor. So consider how perfectly complete are the divine expressions in the report about how the matter truly is. So if we want to spell it out even farther, make this image a little even clearer, the alcove is the blessed chest. The wick is the blessed tongue. And the glass is the blessed mouth, holding the tongue and keeping the winds from blowing it and all of these things. The oil is the blessed medet, that is this extension for the manifestation of light. And the tree is who. And then we go all the way back to slide 2 or 3 or 4. His spirit, the tree, and his mother. Okay. And so the blessed chest, the blessed tongue, the blessed mouth, the blessed medet, and who. And Baki, if you could sing this for us.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Mustafa. Peace and blessing be upon you, oh beloved Mustafa. You are radiance from the holy throne, civil of Allah, divine messengers, you the all of the sacred law, you the resplendence of supreme truth. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Mustafa, peace and blessing be upon you, oh beloved Mustafa. You the human form of the clear Quran, light of guidance, light of delight, light within light, fresh out of prophecy, ancestors for humanity. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Mustafa. Peace and blessing be upon you, oh beloved Mustafa. Ya Rasul Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Ya Shafi Allah, Ya Nabi Allah.
Sallallahu ala Muhammad. Okay, beautiful.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, now we're supposed to be only talking about Yasin, which means we're talking about everything. So when I first read this years and years ago, and I would keep reading it, I keep thinking that he's talking about Yasin. Well, now technically he's not talking about Yasin, but anyway, it's, I think, Yasin. So let's go ahead and look at this one. Abdul Karim bin Wahshi al-Misri, the Egyptian. He was one of the greats living in Mecca, God be kind to him, in the year 599. So he said to me, to Ibn Arabi, I had embarked on a ship in the sea from Jeddah, going to the lands of Egypt. When we were splitting through the water and running with the wind, night came upon us. We were coursing in the middle of the sea, and the ship's crew was asleep. Then an individual from the passengers arose to answer the call of nature. His legs slipped and he fell into the sea, and the waves took him under. The captain fell silent and did not speak. Suddenly there was a goodly gust. The captain of the ship could not believe it, but lo, the man was coming towards the ship upon the face of the water until getting back on. Accompanying him was a giant bird. When he reached the ship, the bird flew up and alighted by the ship's mast pole on the head of the cross tree. Then he stretched his beak towards the ear of that man as if he was speaking to him. Then he flew off. The captain of the ship said nothing to him until when there was a moment during the day, the captain embraced him and treated him with honor and asked him for a prayer. The man said to him, I am not one of the tribe from whom prayers are asked. So, I'm not a saint. Then the captain said to him, but I saw you last night, and what transpired with you? So he replied, my brother, the matter is not as you think. It's just that when I fell into the sea and the waves had taken me down, and I was absolutely certain of death, and there was no use crying out to you all for succor, then I said, this is the measured destiny of the inaccessible, the all-knowing, submitting myself to the decree of God. I could not believe it, but lo, a bird seized me, and he raised me up from between the waves, and he carried me across the waves of the sea until he put me on the ship, just as you saw. Thus I wondered at the design of God, and I stayed there looking up at the bird. And I said, I wish I only knew who was this bird God made the means of saving me and my life. Then the bird stretched his beak from the top of the cross tree to my ear, and he said to me, I am your words. This is the measured destiny of the inaccessible, the all-knowing, and this is how I am called. So the name of this bird was, this is the measured destiny of the inaccessible, the all-knowing. This is what I've been gesturing to in this chapter, with God creating the angel from the book, or the angel from the words in other manuscripts. And these words are their names. And by these names, they are distinguished one from another. And by these names, they are called out to and entreated, madet, in prayer, wherever the prayer it may be. ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ. So, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. So thank you. Hamida, still having trouble hearing?
Sorry. I ignored the big unmute sign on my, on my screen looking at the chat. The first question is on your very first slide, the introduction to Yasin. You quoted that the world would be everything other than God. How could anything be everything other than God?
So this is the shorthand for there's God, and then there's everything other than God. So there's God who looks at the mirror, and all the reflections are everything other than God. So we can say that the reflections are God, and they're not God. They're hu lahu. So that is, of course, the reason that we ask for forgiveness from Al-Ghafur is because we are made to be the images of God. And then we think, oh, I must be God. And that creates separation. And so what I need to do is say, cover up my thought that I was God, make me realize that I am an image of God. And so that's to restore that there's God, looks in the mirror, and we are the images.
And along the same line, curious as to why the same term shifts from masculine to feminine and vice versa.
Let me see how that's, if there's, I'm not sure that this was one of the places where there's a shift.
It would have been early on.
Yeah, well, in the poem, the M is for the heart, is every he is for the heart. And then, yeah, I'm not sure where exactly that is. Yeah, I'm not sure. We need to see exactly where that is.
Zakia, can you make it clearer?
Yeah.
Well, it was the heart, but last weekend, the week before that, with the sun and the moon, it happened more often. I termed it female and male, of course, and it was masculine and feminine. So it was more during the last few weeks, last 2 weeks, I think. But today the heart, I'm not sure the heart is masculine or feminine, but I tend to think it's feminine, but I'm not sure though. But it was more during the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. So in the Arabi, in the Arabic, the moon is masculine and the intent. I mean, masculine in grammar, and the sun is feminine in grammar. The heart is masculine in grammar, and then the word for who, which is the masculine third person singular, is called huwiyat, which is feminine. So when you talk about the he, you're talking about she. So, and Ibn Arabi sees gender, grammatical gender in letters also, but then switches it sometimes when it's appropriate for someone of his adab to speak a certain way about masculine and feminine characters that we have.
So in the sun and moon thing, I did know that the sun was feminine and the moon was masculine. But if I remember correctly in the slides, in the next page, the reverse, the sun became masculine and the moon became feminine. And that's when I actually put in the question as to why that is happening.
Okay. Yeah, and it's very interesting because of the gendered grammar when it switches, because Ibn Arabi does switch and sometimes speaks of the sun back as masculine. And so this is very interesting. He does that when he talks about the Greeks he said the Greeks have the sun, and then he says, and then he switches over to the masculine pronoun for that. So it's very helpful to watch how he treats the genders of the grammar, because that tells us something about what he's expressing to us.
Is there a PDF for all the poems being read?
Meaning the Alahis or the poems? Okay. Yeah, Yeah, I can send the slides to anyone. Go ahead and put the email on the chat.
Okay. A lot of comments here. Okay. Can you tell us more about sakana, i.e. rent-free, and what it means for the divine breath to come from Yemen?
Okay, so the sukna is that you abide, or you have an abode which is rent-free, and what this is part of the thought of, or the imagery of, the guest, because Abu Madian, Ibn Arabi's teacher, Abu Madian was criticized, like many of the Sufis are criticized in those days, especially, I guess. They said, why don't you ply a trade or have a craft? And Abu Madian said, I do have a craft, and I teach all my followers to take up a craft. And then he says, but as for me, I'm a guest of my Lord, and the day of the Lord is 1,000 years. So I have and because the guest is put to work after the third day, and I'm still on my first day. So that's how he looked at that. So being rent-free is to be a guest of the divine, which is a beautiful position, that we don't have to earn our keep because we are guests.
Beautiful. Is it correct that the bird that saved the man was the angel created by his words, his good deeds?
Yes, so this was the being that was created by his medet, his call for help, and he called using those words, and those words took form into this bird, just the way as when the Prophet ﷺ needed help and assistance, that the words were breathed into and they became the Ansar, the people who welcomed him into Medina. So the welcoming him into Medina, they are the words of God, which are relieving him with breath and giving him assistance. And we then call them the Ansar, but they are the words of God.
Some of these drawings that you show are very difficult to copy on my notebook. Are they all going to be in your upcoming book so I can relax and stop taking notes so rapidly?
Yes, you can relax. We can relax. Lishan in Cambridge is putting together an illustrated guide to Ibn Arabi, which will be all of last year's slides. She's going to be arranging everything in a beautiful way, kind of like a coffee table book of the illustrated guide to Ibn Arabi. So inshallah, that's happening right now.
Fayez K3 has a question he'd like to ask.
Please.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum assalam.
Really happy to be here. I wanted to ask if everything is happening now, and it has happened and is going to happen instantaneously, simultaneously. So the question is about Miraj of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And as you said, that we are part of his body. So we were presented to as a part. So we have basically done Miraj and we are back here, but we have some conscience of it and we have not conscience of it. We sometimes break out of that consciousness and realize it sometimes, and sometimes we do not. We have been and not so been. So taking it back to a smaller level, cellular level, when our body is feeling pain or the cell goes too hot, when we get fever, it's the whole mystical body.
Yeah. And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ said that the faithful, all of us in this mystic body, when there is a fever, they all gather together like a league, like an army, and they're all working together to protect against this fever. So the mystic body is all of the parts gathering together in a response to this, to a stimulus or to a problem, to a fever. And so that is the imagery of the mystic body, that we are like a league an army all working together. And the other imagery is that we're all in rows, like the angels are in rows. And so we are shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart, and we're in a row. And that row is how we then present to the world. And so we had the timeless soul of Rasulullah enters into the realm of time. So what you're talking about is this: there's a timeless soul, there is this timeless reality, and that's why, for instance, Omar will say we don't use the word predestination; we just use the word destination. And so that this timeless soul enters into time, and then when it enters into time, then, as you said, we're often not aware. We're almost always not aware of that. So the becoming aware of it is medet and astaghfirullah. So that when I am not aware of it, I feel I am separate. I experience separation, and I feel like I am outside of what is. And I think that I'm in control of my destiny, for instance, or that things that happened before, they could have been different. And all of those things are separations. And then to restore myself after separation, that's ghafar ghafur, astaghfirullah. It's to cover up the separation, turn me back, to restore me to the direct link to this timeless soul. So that's that. But the thing is that it isn't something that I should try to get better at, because the looking at the reality and seeing reality as it is why I have been created. So Ibn Arabi says we are made to forget, and we are made to not be able to remember everything, so that when we see it fresh. We say, oh, there you are. You're so beautiful. And so this is that you want your beloved to be a bit forgetful, so that every time your beloved comes to look at you and says, oh, look at you, how handsome you are. And then the next day, your beloved says, oh, look at you, you're so handsome. And you said, well, you told me that yesterday. So we don't mind that we've told that yesterday, and our beloved has forgotten that. And so we do want this separation as a necessary part of humanity. And so a necessary part of humanity will also be restoring ourselves after separation. Thank you.
Another question: was the man who fell in the water calling for help or surrendering?
Yeah, so his complete surrender, saying he wasn't going to cry out to the people on the boat hoping that they would pick him up. He just, this is, yeah, I've had that experience before. So someone said, why didn't you cry out for help? And I said, there's, what's the use of crying out for help? Because this is what was going on. So he had that situation. This is my reality. I'm dying. And then he says, this is what the destiny is of the inaccessible, the all-knowing. And the moment he said that with utter certainty, then those words that were created by him then assisted him and gave him medet, gave him help, and brought him back onto the ship.
Can you say more about the minerals and how they're part of the mystic body? There seems something significant about how we tend to leave out the minerals.
Yes, very much. And that's why I just, when Ibn Arabi talks about minerals, he says these are the highest, and then the plants are lower, and then the animals are lower, and the human beings are lowest of all. So that's his hierarchy. Mineral, the best, because minerals, they go where they're supposed to go and they stay there. And the rest of us are always running around. And so the mineral is the highest. And then the mineral, of course, is Mother Earth. And so the mineral and Mother Earth is the one always receptive to receiving the look at the mirror, the reflection of the divine. So that always receptive is the quality of the mineral. And that's why Ibn Arabi says, when you die, you go back into the surface of the earth. You go back into the earth and you become more and more mineral. And then as long as there's one mineral part of you, the rest of you can fly around the countless universes, but that one mineral part will always be your mirror and receptivity to the divine.
Inshallah. In a couple of hours, we have a Zoom meeting with the Sheikhs. Do we have your permission to bring up in that meeting topics or subjects from your presentations to get the blessed Sheikha's feedback?
No, well, we have another day for that. So we do have some gatherings that we can do. This one's going in a beautiful direction, and we'll do ours in a little bit differently. We can try that again and meet up and go a different way with that.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I read from the slides, sorry, but I don't have the slides, that angels were created for the children of Adam and Eve. Do you mean that angels were created according to humans' needs? If yes, please can you elaborate on that, and types of angels according to types of needs? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes I get the slides done early and I send them out to some people. Other times they don't get quite so early. Here the idea is the Arabic S, K, H, and R, Sakhara. And so Sakhara and Tasghir means, I'm using the word in English, subjugation, because what happens is that the angels are subjugated to the human beings. That means they are put into service for the human being. And so, unless, whenever we start thinking that makes us kind of feel kind of prideful and arrogant, Ibn Arabi will say, let's look at other kinds of subjugations. For instance, we can say that the horse is subjugated to you. And so the horse is put into your service. But he says, but look at this relationship you have with the horse or your car. Think about your car also. You do everything to make sure the horse has enough food, and you make sure the horse is sheltered from the rain and the storms and the sun. And you make sure that the horse gets medicine when the horse is sick. And when the horse is out there, the horse runs that way because the horse doesn't need you, you need the horse. So this is to tell us that when you say subjugated, you want to find out who's really being subjugated to whom. And of course, we are subjugated to all the things we think are subjugated to us. But having said that, we do say that Ibn Arabi says that the angels, there are angels who are subjugated to serve so that the human being can do what the human being is supposed to do. And what the human being is supposed to do is to live in the mystic body. And so we need to have blood pressure, we need to have attraction and repulsion, we need to have heat and cold and wet and dry, and we need all of these things to be subjugated to us so that the mystic body can function. But if we then get arrogant about that, then we've missed the point.
The comment here, mineral, solid in faith.
Yes, and so yeah, the mineral is always there, never grows out of being a mirror for the divine, and never runs off like a mirror from the divine, and never becomes an articulate soul like the human being and thinks that it's divine.
Is it possible to go over today's topic again some other day?
Yeah, yes. We'll try to look at these slides again. I'll try to set up a time. Okay, Alhamdulillah.
I believe that when Ibn Arabi speaks of angels, he includes all subtle beings, consciousness that exist, and not just the articulating. Oh, well, I don't know if he means angels or angels. Well, he wrote angels, articulating angels such as Gabriel and others.
Yeah, so the angels for Ibn Arabi in the Arabic are the ones who transmit messages. So the word for us, messenger, is the word for angelic. So malaika are the ones who transmit a message, and so they are messengers. And so they go all the way from the archangels to angels that are created by words that we say, to angels which are subjugated to do one process of the mystic body, all the way down to or up to flies that sit on you. So a fly that sits on you is a messenger, and that messenger, Ibn Arabi says, that messenger is telling you something. And the ones who recognize God everywhere, the Arafin, they're the ones who don't push this fly away because they need to find out what message is that fly giving me. And then they're their body is saying, get rid of that fly. And their other part is saying, wait, it's a messenger and I need to find out what the messenger has to tell me. So all of this angelic, these words angelic mean messages. So these are messages from the divine to us.
Can you please tell us more about Yasin and the 10 statements that you mentioned in the first slide?
So the 10 statements in sort of theology, in Islamic theology, and I guess in Sufism to some extent. I'm working right now with Uzair on some of these. They are often, by the Ikhwan al-Safwa, for instance, will say that these are the 10 categories of Aristotle. So these 10 categories, but Ibn Arabi doesn't take them as categories and doesn't take them as Aristotle's categories. He said the 10 statements, they are first the human beings like Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, and then he goes down the list. These are 10 statements. And then he says these are 10 deputies, and he goes through 10 deputies of what they are. But in his background, he knows that most people in his time will see those things as the 10 categories of like substance and quantity and quality and all these different categories. So what he's trying to say with using the word 10 statements is that there is a completeness in the 10 statements, just as there's a completeness in the people who include Abu Bakr all the way to Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and so 10 of them, Ali and all 10, that's a completeness because 10 is this complete number. So there are complete 10 people, complete 10 categories, complete 10 grammatical particles and words, that this is a complete aspect. And so Yasin then is this kind of completion. It contains all of the alighting places.
Inshallah, we're into Ramadan next week. Will there be any change in timings of the session?
Okay, we'll go ahead and email me if there's any issues, and we'll see if we can resolve them. So far, I'm thinking we might just stay the same timing, but if there's something else, we can modify as we go later on. But as far as I know, I think, well, tell me more about if there's any kind of problems, and we'll see what we can do.
What about the Muhayminum? Are they not angels?
Yes, so the angels, the Muhaymin, they are the ones who are so close to Allah that they lose they can't think of anything. They're always confounded and perplexed because they don't see any subject-object duality. So they're there. And so this is a very beautiful imagery of the ones that are so close that because they can't see duality, they can't recognize that there's anyone else in the world. And so they can't be brought to service because they don't even know that they're there and that there's anyone else out there. All they see is Allah.
And Ibn Arabi also speaks of angels controlling our digestive systems and mood, etc.
Yeah, so that's he talks about the beings inside the intestines, and he calls these beings, they're in charge. They have an amanat, they have a sacred trust to us. And so when something comes in to us that is not good for us, it goes out either by burping or by other means. If it's good for us, it goes through us and then goes out in the other ways. And so these beings inside the body, inside the intestines, they're the ones who determine our physical health and then our spiritual health, and they determine where we are on the day of judgment. And so when I first started reading this and trying to translate this, I realized that the whole discussion of gut bacteria and the gut biome was coming out about 2010, kind of late there. And here he's talking about this 800 years ago. And of course, the 2010, they're talking about the physical and mental effects, that if your gut biome is doing well, you're physically good and you're mentally in good shape. But Ibn Arabi says there's two other things as well. There's the spirit, and that is that the spirit resides in this vessel of the body. And so the spirits want the vessel to be in good shape. And then there's a fourth place, that when you are on the dune, when you're visiting and seeing this, the vision of Allah, then at that moment, how your body is as it is buried, tells you about what your vision will be.
Big flies always mean hurry up. So whenever I see one in my home, I must listen to the message. I mean the fly, otherwise I'm late.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So that's, yeah, if we become attuned more and more to the messages that are coming to us all the time, and we kind of call that intuition. People kind of call that intuition because it's, you know something, but you don't know where it came from. Well, those are the messages. Yeah, beautiful.
And we sometimes experience divine messages, know that they're divine, but not fully understand their purpose or meaning.
Yes, and that's why we had the verse ending, I think, last week, but that we will understand all this ilahin at a particular moment. And so the moments are very important. We don't get everything all at once. And sometimes we don't learn something till years and years later. And that's why, so I've been using that image of the vinyl record, that you get all the information you need. You get the melody of the song, but you have to go back to it. And then you go back to it. And each time you go back to it, you may learn more from it. And then it may be years later that you go back to it and you hear what's inside there, what was needed to be heard. And the same way with our dreams, that you want to hold your dreams and keep visiting them and see, what do these dreams teach us? Because as things happen to you out here, that brings a different understanding to the dreams that you've had, which could be years and years ago.
There's a clarification about the big fly. I mean, this is what big flies mean to me, but they may mean other things for other people, of course.
That's right. In the same way, words mean different things to different people. And you end up, we begin to see that each message is completely unique. It's for one person, and the other person will get something different. And that's because Allah's tajalli, the shining radiant brilliance, is to each individual being. It's not a group one, and it's not to everyone, it's to each one. And so all of us get an individual one-on-one link message from the divine.
If I injured my back, would the injury go through the mystical body? Is the mystical body the same as the subtle body?
Yeah, so and of course, injuries are very big messages as well. They're telling us something, and problems in the body and the mystic body are, the imagery is completely consistent. So when we have a problem in the mystical body, it's also a problem in this mineral, plant, animal body as well. And so we want to be finding out what brings health to this body. And one of the things that brings health to the body is that all the parts of the body work together. And that's how we have in Arabic, sahih and salah and all of these words, integration. So that is that you want your body working as a whole, as an integrated whole. And then the mystic body, we want to move as an integrated whole. And so what we need to have a way to bring together all of the parts of the body. Now, remembering that the divine names, and then therefore all of the names, have contradictions in them. And we are trees so that we have contradiction in us. And so how to bring peace to contradictory names and contradictory parts of our body, this is the key. And it's possible with the word mu'min. The divine word mu'min is the one that is able to bring peace to the brothers and the siblings who are fighting each other. So the divine names are siblings, and then we need to find a way to bring peace among the divine names. And that's how I can accept contradictory forces in my body and then integrate them, bring peace to them. And the same way with the mystic body, that all of the pieces are going to be contradictory to each other, and they need to be found a way to bring peace to them. So therefore, the answer is not, if I've got molecules or cells in my body which are a certain thing, and I think, oh, that's a bad part, I need to cut them out and throw them away. The same way, we don't look around and say, oh, if we only could get rid of these 3 people over there who are such idiots or whatever, that would solve the problem. That would not solve the problem. so the contradictory and the people who are obedient and disobedient, nice to me and not nice to me, all of that, finding they are all of them part of this body. And the answer is to find integration and peace among these parts and not to eliminate any of them.
And even though we may not get the whole meaning or melody from an Ilahi, we still receive the full transmission.
Yes, so that's the beautiful part, that what we are getting at every moment, and Ibn Arabi says all you need is one moment. It's all in there. So what we are getting at every moment is this completeness, is the fullness, and we then find out. Then we have to find ways to see parts of it, or parts of it, or parts of it. And in fact, that means that the divine is this full wholeness that then is reflected in these little parts that are you and me, these little parts that are you and me. And so being separated and being distinct from and being just a part of the whole is a sort of our human condition. And that's necessary because the divine cannot become separate or individuated, because then there would be two gods. And if there were two gods, everything would be spoiled. So, as the Quran says.
That the condition of the body has effect on our place in the dune is radical. Does this mean that our physical health affects our spiritual maqam? What about the Evila who died with physical illness or disability?
So when we think about what a healthy body is in these terms, the healthy body is that one reflects the divine names. And so reflecting of the divine names, there'll be parts that look like they are diseased or incomplete or problematic. But from the whole, we see that they are part of this beautiful whole. And that's why individual acts can be bad or diseased or corrupted. But from the bigger picture, we see that they are all part of a whole. And so the same way with the divine names, that the ones that why do we have the name gives death? Shouldn't life be, well, no, because gives death is a necessary part. And so my cells also have to get into death. Otherwise it's called cancer and tumors and things like that. If my body doesn't know when to kill off a cell, then that's going to take me over. But it's not that the cell is bad. And so that a cell dying is not bad. It's a necessary part. From the perspective of that tiny cell, it might seem like a very bad thing. And so this is how that there are certain parts of our body which have to hold certain things which are contradictory and difficult to hold. And in the next week, we have this chapter that he's going to talk about. He doesn't use the word affliction. He uses this word that this is an opportunity that comes out. So there are parts of us that have to do things and have to go get bad or die off. Just the way there are people who have to die. We all have to die. And so the awliya, the ones who are friends, they can take on these parts that everyone else is saying, oh, what a horrible situation that is. And they take that situation on because it needs to be there. And someone's got to hold it. And so they're holding things that are very painful, very intensely afflicting. So this is one of because they are holding it, something that must be held, they are in a sense, and they are preserving the whole body. So by taking on this difficult part, they preserve the whole body. And the rest of us then are thankful for them to take on these difficult things because someone's got to do it. And so they're the ones who preserve, and they're the ones who say that this cosmos, this body will continue because I will take the places that are so contradictory and so difficult for everyone else.
Some of us have had serious illness since birth or early childhood. Is there hope for us?
Yeah, well, this could be when we look out at Mother Earth. It's not all green leaves and nice loamy soil. There's all sorts of parts of Mother Earth. There are rocky parts and arid parts and wet parts and all of these kinds of things. so in a sense, when we look at that, we can't look at one part and say, I see green trees, therefore it must be a good world. Or if I see lots of rocky deserts and I say, oh, it must be a bad world. I have to see the whole thing. And each part then is necessary. Each part is part of Mother Earth. And there are those who are in places which are easy and those who are places which are difficult. And there are people who are in those places which are very, very difficult. Yes.